She has everything the world tells a woman she should want: a title, a palace, a husband who is admired by millions, security that most people will never know in 10 lifetimes. And yet, she is preparing to walk away from all of it. Not because she was forced to, not because she had somewhere better to go, but because she had given everything she had and realized that giving everything is not always enough. This is the untold story of Fazza's wife, the woman who gave up a kingdom and what that sacrifice truly cost her. Before we talk about what she gave up, we need to talk about who she was, because this is where most people get the story wrong. When we talk about women who marry into royal families, we tend to flatten them. We reduce them to their role: wife, consort, companion, as though the person they were before the marriage simply ceases to exist the moment they step inside a palace gate. But she was someone before she was Sheikh Hamdan's wife. She came from a family of standing and dignity within the Arab world, a family that had its own history, its own values, its own quiet pride. She was raised with the understanding that a woman's worth is not measured by whom she marries, but by how she carries herself. She was educated. She was composed. She was, by all accounts of those who knew her before her marriage, a woman who had clear ideas about what she wanted from life and was not easily swayed by pressure or expectation. And what she wanted, more than anything else, was something very simple. She wanted to be truly chosen, not chosen for political reasons, not chosen because it was convenient or strategic or because families had aligned their interests, chosen the way a man chooses a woman when nothing else matters, when title and convenience and expectation fall away, and all that is left is the truth of what he fears. She believed when she married Sheikh Hamdan that she had been chosen in that way. That belief and the slow, painful unraveling of it is the story we are telling today. When she agreed to marry Sheikh Hamdan, she was not simply agreeing to a relationship. She was agreeing to a complete transformation of her life. Let me walk you through what that actually meant. The first sacrifice, her privacy. The moment she became connected to the house of Maktoum, her life was no longer entirely her own. Her movements were observed, her appearances were noted, her clothing, her companions, her public behavior. All of it became subject to a level of scrutiny that most of us will never experience. She accepted that, quietly, without complaint. The second sacrifice, her independence. Before her marriage, she had the freedom to make her own decisions: where to go, whom to see, how to spend her time. Inside the royal world, that freedom becomes structured, managed. Everything happens within a framework of protocol and expectation. She accepted that too. The third sacrifice, her sense of security. This one is less obvious, but it is perhaps the most significant. When you love someone deeply and you build your life around that love, your emotional security becomes tied to them, to their presence, to their attention, to the feeling that you are, in their eyes, irreplaceable. She gave Sheikh Hamdan that security, completely, without reservation. And what she needed in return was the same: not grand gestures, not public declarations, simply the quiet daily reassurance that she was the one, that in a world full of admirers and history and complicated emotions, she was where his heart had finally landed. That reassurance never fully came, and slowly, quietly, it began to cost her everything. It did not happen all at once. That is the thing about this kind of pain. It does not arrive as a single blow. It accumulates, drop by drop, day by day, in moments so small that each one on its own could be explained away. The first sign was the poetry. Sheikh Hamdan has always written, and she understood when she married him that his poetry was his most honest self, more honest sometimes than anything he said out loud. So she read everything he wrote carefully, hopefully, and what she found again and again was a longing that did not seem to be directed at her. The poems spoke of a love that had roots, old roots, deep roots, the kind that survive seasons and separations and the passage of time. They spoke of someone who had been there before her, someone who, in his emotional world, had not been replaced. She told herself it was artistic expression, poetic license, the nature of a creative mind that draws from memory as much as from the present. She told herself that for a long time. The second sign was the London trip, when Sheikh Hamdan announced that he was traveling to London, not for official duties but to visit Shaker Shaker, his first wife, at his father's quiet suggestion. Something shifted inside her. It was not the trip itself. She understood the complexities of royal family dynamics. She understood that history does not simply disappear because a new chapter begins. What she could not understand, what she could not make peace with, was the feeling that settled in her chest as he left. The feeling that she was watching him move towards something that still held him and away from something, from her, that perhaps never had. The third sign was the silence after. When Sheikh Hamdan returned, he did not talk about the trip. He was present, physically present, but somewhere behind his eyes, he was still somewhere else. She did not press him. She was not that kind of woman. But she noticed, and she filed it away in the place where all her quiet observations lived, growing heavier day by day. There are moments in a person's life that do not announce themselves. They do not arrive with a dramatic confrontation or a single breaking point. They arrive quietly, like the moment when you finally acknowledge something you have known for a long time but refuse to say out loud. For Sekamdan's wife, that moment came on an ordinary evening. She had been reading one of his recent poems, the one he had posted publicly, the one that millions of his followers had shared and praised and commented on. The words were beautiful. They always were. But this time, as she read, something inside her became completely still, because she realized, with a clarity that felt less like discovery and more like confirmation, that in all the words he had written, in all the longing and all the beauty and all the carefully arranged verses, she could not find herself. She was not in his poetry. She had been hoping for months to find a line that was hers, a metaphor that belonged to her, a feeling that she had inspired. She set the poem down. She looked out the window at the city her husband would one day lead, and she made a decision, not in anger, not in desperation, but in the quiet dignity of a woman who finally knows her own worth. She would not compete for space in a heart that had not fully made room for her. She would not spend the rest of her life reading between the lines of another woman's love story. She had given this marriage everything she had, her privacy, her independence, her emotional security, her patience, her hope, and now, quietly, permanently, without drama, she would give it one final thing, her absence. She did not leave in the middle of the night. She did not pack her things while he was away and vanish before he could return. There were no dramatic confrontations, no public statements, no tearful goodbyes captured by cameras. She left the way she had lived inside that marriage with complete composure. She returned to her family, to the people who had known her before the palace, before the title, before all of it, to a home where she was simply herself, not a royal wife, not a symbol, not a woman competing with a history she had never been part of. Sheikh Hamdan, to his credit, did not pretend that nothing had happened. He reached out, he wrote to her, not publicly but privately. He sent messages through people she trusted. He did what powerful men rarely find the humility to do. He acknowledged that he had hurt her, and he asked for the chance to make it right. She did not respond with cruelty. She was not built for cruelty. But she also did not go back, because she understood something that Sheikh Hamdan, for all his wisdom and all his poetry, was perhaps still learning, that some things, once broken at the root, cannot be repaired by the branches. She had not left because of an argument. She had not left because of a single event or a single poem or a single conversation. She had left because of an accumulation of truths, quiet, undeniable truths that had built up over months until they formed a wall she could no longer pretend was not there. And on the other side of that wall was her life, waiting for her to choose it. I want to take a moment here to say something that I think gets lost in most conversations about this story. We spend a great deal of time talking about Sheikh Hamdan, his poetry, his feelings, his regret, his complicated heart, and very little time talking about her. But she is, in many ways, the most extraordinary figure in this entire story. Think about what she did. She walked away from wealth that most people cannot imagine, from a title that would have defined her for the rest of her life, from a social position that carries weight across the entire Arab world and beyond. She walked away from all of it, not because someone forced her hand, not because she had nothing to lose, but because she had enough self respect to know that she deserved more than she was receiving. That is not a small thing in a world, and particularly in a cultural context, where women are often expected to endure, to adapt, to find a way to make peace with whatever they are given. She did something that required enormous quiet courage. She said, "This is not enough for me. and I am worth more than this. She did not say it loudly, she did not say it publicly. She simply lived it through her decision, through her departure, through the dignified silence she has maintained ever since. That is her sacrifice fully understood. Not just what she gave up when she entered that marriage, but what she gave up when she left it, the fantasy of it, the hope of it, the version of her life she had imagined when she said yes. She grieved all of that, quietly, and then she kept walking. Sheikh Hamdan's story is often told as the story of a prince and his poetry, of a man torn between two loves, of a royal divorce that captivated a region. But today I wanted to tell you a different version, the version that belongs to her, the woman who gave up a kingdom, who sacrificed her privacy, her independence, her hope, and eventually her place in a palace that never quite became a home. She gave up all of that, and in doing so, she gave herself something that no title could ever provide, her own story, on her own terms. If this video moved you, if it gave you a new way of seeing this story, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you are not yet subscribed, I would love for you to join this community. We tell stories here with depth, with care, and with respect for every person in them. I will see you in the next one.